Hello and welcome, fellow Marvel fans, to the Snark Industries podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Remy.
And we invite you to join us as we work our way through every Marvel TV show, movie, and crossover, meaning if there's a Marvel character on screen, it's fair game. All categorized in the temporal order of their setting. By the time we're done, we'll have built a complete start-to-finish timeline of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. To accomplish this goal and to have a bit of fun along the way, each episode will be split into two parts, the Watch Party and the Deep Dive. If you're hearing this, you found one of our deep dives. This is where we slow things down and take a more pragmatic, in-depth look at a piece of Marvel media. We'll walk through the full plot, explore connections to the wider MCU and Marvel Comics, highlight Easter eggs, unpack lore, and of course, give you our own personal thoughts and feelings. Although this episode stands on its own, it is designed to complement the Watch Party. So, if you haven't watched along with us yet, we highly recommend starting there first and coming back here for the full breakdown. Most importantly, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this incredible journey. We're not affiliated with Marvel in any way, shape, or form. We're just fans who are passionate about these stories and these characters and wish to share them with everyone in a new and exciting way. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Snark Industries.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Snark Industries Deep Dive. We just watched The Last Panther, Eyes of Wakanda, episode 4 of season 1. And John, why don't you tell us what this was about?
All right, so we start out in 1896 in the Italo-Ethiopian War with two Wakandans, Prince Tafari and a veteran war dog named Kuda, on a mission to, I bet you can guess it, recover a Wakandan artifact.
Like to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, just for a change in activities. It seems very early on that Prince Tafari is young and, he is young, but seems is inexperienced, I think is what I'm trying to say, and is there supposedly on an observation mission with Kuda. And ultimately, they do find their piece of Wakandan tech in the middle of this great battle that's happening, and it is the axe, not only that was referenced in the first episode of Eyes of Wakanda, but is the weapon that Killmonger finds in the museum in the Black Panther movie, which we'll get to a little bit as we go on. But they do find it, and as they're leaving the city, an invisible figure standing in the middle of the road and upturns their battle wagon. And as they come to, a fight ensues between them, seemingly some sort of villain, and it turns out that it is actually a Black Panther from the future. She introduces herself as the Queen from the year 2296 and spells out a certain level of doom and gloom as the world is ending. And the only way to save it is if her to go back into time to find this particular relic and return it to where they just found it from, which will allow it to be ultimately recovered in an archaeological dig and put into that museum for Killmonger to find, which leads to the events of the Black Panther movie, which means that Wakanda connects with the rest of the world, which means the world will then be strong enough to defeat this world-ending infestation. As she tells them all this, she is unable to hold her temporal form and returns back to the future where these bugs in question attack where she is at, along with Adora Milaje, and we see them have a bit of a battle to defend the portal into time to keep these things out of the past. Prince Tafari convinces Kuda to take the axe back to where they found it, ultimately doing so. And as they return safely home to Wakanda after some hard-fought battles, in which case we thought for a moment we lost Kuda, but he does survive, we see the last scene, a cut to the future where Killmonger is standing in the museum looking at the axe head, seemingly that this plan did indeed work. So, as it ties into the MCU, actually, this is one of the first ones that really directly does. The implication
very
being,
heavily, yeah.
The implication being that in doing the events of this episode allowed Killmonger to find this axe, which then those events branched out to ultimately save the entire world in the year 2296. Obviously, we have the just generic tie-ins with the Black Panther, the War Dogs, the Adora Milaje, Wakanda in general, same as the other Eyes on Wakanda episodes. But for the first time, we really get a big shift as they are trying to plug into something directly to the MCU and what we understand as the MCU at large. So that's how it ties into the MCU. Remy, how about any comic books?
As far as comic origins and universe designation, of course, because of how well it ties in, this is, of course, the main Marvel U, which is Earth 1999999 or 616 if you want to be wrong. But as far as the comic roots themselves are concerned, the Horde, I was predicting in the watch party that it was the Annihilus Horde, which apparently this is lifted from the 2006 Eternals miniseries written by Neil Gaiman. So I didn't realize that. So these are actually creatures that do exist, not just invented for this show. Kind of cool.
Interesting.
As you mentioned, the War Dogs are certainly there, which was from Black Panther #3. There's also the political isolationism, which is heavily referring to Black Panther Volume 6 and the run in 2005 by, I'm going to mispronounce this name and I apologize, but Ta-Nehisi Coates and Reginald Hudlin. So sorry if I mispronounced those. Yep. But as far as comic tie-ins, that's really all it goes. This one is much, as John said, much heavier tied into the MCU in general than it is the comics. And as far as Easter eggs are concerned, I mean, the biggest one, of course, is the axe. I don't know that it was really an Easter egg, such a focal point.
Plot device.
But otherwise, I didn't see a whole lot else. We did see the lion mask every single episode in this show. We, of course, got the flashbacks to Bukai and all the other characters, which was really neat to see. But I don't, again, think those would be considered Easter eggs. So what'd you think overall?
So I thought the episode overall was well put together. The choreography of the combat, the combat fights, as you call them, was well done.
Damn it, I can't edit that out now.
I do not like this episode, and I'll go into why we discussed a bit as it was happening. There's some liberties taken here that I think steps outside of the realm of what makes sense. What If can kind of do that in their episodes because we understand it. It is What If. These are separate
meant to entities, be absurd. Yeah.
Meant to be stories told, and that's it. This, and implying heavily that this particular act, the actions of this episode, making the timeline work the way it did and the way that we understand it, goes directly against all that we have learned and understood about how timelines work and the multiverse works and all the things that have happened thus far. This idea that this did happen and that the future Black Panther coming back and making them change it would have, by all understandings of what has been laid out for us, created a branch. So ultimately, then, are we to understand that the branch is what actually happened in the Black Panther movie and the ensuing things? Or did they just get this wrong and it doesn't work this way? I'm more inclined to lean towards the latter. I think that they just thought that this would be a cool tie-in, but without following the rules that has been set up already in the MCU. And I mean, and this ultimately, with its release date being what it is an MCU show. I mean, this is all kinds of falls under the Feige empire. Right. So it's strange to me that they took that liberty to go in and to do this without even at least addressing how it would work and everything else. I think a more simple thing would be if they laid out time travel, they already have it, that they are able to do it and could say that somehow a different time traveler had come back and had moved it. And that's why the timeline was off. And then they were going and just fixing it, because we did see that works. And ultimately, that's true, how Endgame ended up being a success in terms of what their mission was. If they had done something like that, I could get behind it. But to just blatantly disregard the rules that have been laid out to make up a story, even if it's a decent story overall, and like I said, well choreographed, and the animation's great and all that stuff. I do enjoy those things, but just to blatantly ignore all of that and just kind of make up your own thing, I cannot abide that.
I do want to pose a theory that could explain that away. What if she were from an alternate timeline and her timeline ultimately did die? That's just simply how it ended. And her coming back was what saved the main Marvel U. So her timeline splintered regardless. That existed. But her intervening in this instance may have saved the main Marvel universe, the main cinematic universe, versus saving her timeline, because we saw at the end that she did ultimately die. So her coming back did not fix what happened to her.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that I've always said, not only for Marvel, but for any movie. If there's no body, she's not dead.
That's very fair.
It does seem like it's sort of built up to this whatever. But of course, the idea is, and I think that your theory could make this work. I don't see from what we've been presented that that's what they were trying to do.
I agree completely.
You're negotiating with the story they told to make it make sense. And I think that that's okay if it makes it your
a fanboy thing
better.
To do, man.
But because the idea is that, yes, we see her quote unquote dying.
Right.
Though not really. But if her going back and having them fix this means that this horde either didn't really come or it did come and they were easily outmatched, she wouldn't have been in that situation anyway. So she didn't really die in that case either way. So I do think that theory can make this work, and perhaps that's how we should look at this. I don't see that as this going to have to be. I said I think that's negotiating with the material to make it make sense. It's very clear to me from the last scene that we see with Prince Tafari, where he's talking about, I just wish we could have seen if it worked for the future, and then immediately cutting to Killmonger standing in the museum, implies to me heavily that they are showing like that's them saying, yes, it did work. Look,
it did work. It did. Yeah. But without him having done that, then her reality, rather than being Splinter, may have been the main Marvel universe.
Perhaps so.
I believe, I completely believe what you're saying is, as I'm explaining away the problem, because, as fanboys are wont to do, I want this to work.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, and at the end of the day, from terms of story, and I can stand to, and have my own pride and say that I could be completely wrong here. I just don't see them explaining that way. I said just a sentence or two, adding that in.
No, totally.
That she and that her existence and her understanding was a splintered timeline to start with, and this was fixing it and correcting it back. And that timeline did get pruned in a way, whether it be accidentally or by design.
Right. Yeah, that's really the way they should have approached it. Yeah.
Because ultimately at the end of the day, for those who aren't as invested in this as you or I, this just doesn't just doesn't make sense.
No, the only story similar to this of time travel in Marvel Comics that I can possibly wrap my head around is Days of Future Past, but even then it's not a physical time travel.
Sure.
So I think there are different rules. So it's you're absolutely right. This is a broken rule set, and there's only one way to explain it, and it's not what they said in the episode. So
and it's negotiating. I and it's like I said, and I could be wrong, and that could be what they were trying to imply, and they're just assuming everyone would draw the conclusion that you did. I don't think so, and I would have liked to have seen them add
Probably
that.
Not.
So because of that, I can't really look, and just in general too, to tie it all in together. Like I said, if it really wasn't for that, I would say this is a decent episode. Not my favorite by any means, but setting aside the breaking of the timeline rules, if that's what indeed happened, if they didn't imply what you're saying without saying it, then still, I would say a mid episode overall to the show. My least favorite of the series, for sure.
Out of curiosity, before we wrap up Eyes of Wakanda in its entirety, which was your favorite? I think the third was what you said.
Yeah, I like the Iron Fist episode quite a bit.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was my favorite one, for sure.
And just to wrap this thing up, it may be evident, but my opinion on this episode, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I actually, contrary to John, I love the what if scenarios. So I really appreciate that they're setting up Killmonger to be not necessarily a protagonist, but such a pivotal piece of history where he was, until this point, viewed as the villain. He is now such an important part of the history because you follow the trail of where that axe went and what it actually did for the MCU. It is the catalyst that got Wakanda to open up to the world, which had the battle with Thanos not taking place in Wakanda, what would that have looked like? So it is a huge, huge nexus point in the MCU. So I really appreciate that they gave us the opportunity to put it within that framework. And I thought that was really clever. I don't love the way they handled the time travel. I'm completely with you on that. I realize that I am explaining away what was done, but at the same time, it works well enough that that's totally going to be my headcanon. So solid episode. little funky on the time travel logic, but here we are. And I did ultimately enjoy it.
Fair enough.
But I do think I'm with you that the third episode was my favorite of the three.
Wow. Look at us agreeing.
Yeah, look at that. But yeah, we will see you in the next episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed and continue to do so. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Snark Industries podcast. To join the conversation and further explore the Marvel Cinematic Universe with us, head on over to snarkindustries.pod.com. The link will be in the show notes. But with that, we will see you in the next adventure.
Combat fights.